All right. I want to talk about a particular subject, and I want to talk about a case study. The subject is detransitioners. The case study is this guy. So here's the story, okay? We can scale things back a little bit. Oh yeah, you know because you've seen the discourse, right? Okay. Basically, here's what happened. All right. Now I'll back up even further, okay? There's a tendency, and this has been happening for years, where every once in a while, a person who is medically transitioned will show up and they'll be like, "Hey everyone, being trans is bad actually. Look at my ruined body. Here's an example." And sometimes like they're totally fine. Like for example, in this case, this guy's just like unattractive and balding, which welcome to the real world. Welcome to being a guy. Sorry, just happens to a lot of them, you know. Just okay. Usually you have like this horror story about the experience of transitioning, and what invariably happens is that these people who show up as detransitioners get picked up by right-wing media. You know, they get. I remember that documentary from RT that we went over, which was absolute trash. This happens pretty frequently. It's always because it's like the warning, right? Like, you know, look the rot at what you've brought about through transgender ideology. Look at this. This person could have been a healthy young man or woman or whatever, but now they're ruined because of transitioning or something. Now, the funny thing is, and I'm going to put the cart before the horse here, for everything that you're about to hear and see, this guy's very first tweet on Twitter was saying that he doesn't want to detransition. As I understand it, he's still taking testosterone. So everything that you're about to hear, all of it, like addendum, by the way, I still want to be transitioning, which is kind of interesting, right? Because you can see the tweet here. Just for some perspective, this is what almost 5 years of hormones does to a teenage girl. Remember, I'm 21. Which, yes, obviously testosterone can give you male pattern baldness. That's what that if you're transitioning it, with testosterone, you will have sexual characteristics associated with men. They tell you that. Not only do they tell you that, this is like broadly known. It's not, you know, it's not a secret. But okay, look, let's just watch the video.
Hey y'all, so I got out of my haircut, because my hair was driving me nuts, and I shaved it because I'm tired of watching my hair thin out, and it's less distressing if I shave it. So when I talk about being too far gone, I don't really know what else to call it. This is what I mean. This is how deep my voice is. It's gotten deeper over time, and it's settled. This is what I mean by hair loss. And it just keeps getting worse. It keeps thinning. It keeps receding backwards. And I'm not exactly sure that's coming back. Those are the main things when I talk about being androgenized to a point of no return. I really don't see those being fixable. So that's when I talk about, just kind of staying how I am, regardless of how I feel. That's why, just because I don't really see me personally being able to come back from what's happened so far. So I hope that's a little explanatory.
So basically what he's saying is that having taken testosterone for several years, he's too far gone to detransition, which I don't know what the like effects are of getting back on estrogen after 5 years. I don't really know. It doesn't really matter in the case of this guy, though. Again, like I said, this is the first tweet that he threw out there on the platform. I'm so lucky that my transition was, for lack of a better term, the right choice for me. Looking back, there was so much going on outside the dysphoria, it was a huge gamble for me to transition. I'm glad it worked out for me, but it scares me how many kids have suffered. So, leaving aside that last sentence right there, like all of this is being in the context, like he's essentially complaining about something that he still believes is the right choice for him. Which makes you wonder, like, what's actually being said here? Like, so despite all my complaints, I'm glad that I transitioned. But like, what about the poor kids who have suffered? Well, if they've suffered, why aren't they the ones complaining? Right? Like, why are you here? If you don't regret transitioning in spite of it giving you male pattern baldness, which is something associated with males, and you're taking testosterone, then why are you showing up as an advocate the harm of transgender ideology? And by the way, now I'll finish the video, then I'll say.
Just to kind of give a little bit more of a, let me reword that. Just to kind of you know, talk about, like, give a more awareness to the situation.
So again, like think about it. What situation that you went bald early? It's not that special, right? Like I knew guys who were going bald in high school, cis guys. I mean, okay, like all right. Um I mean, yeah.
Kind of, so you can see where I'm at. Words are not working well with me right now. I'm just gonna cut this off. There you go. You know, this is what happens when you give a woman testosterone. This for 5 years. This is what happens essentially. So, you know, that's it.
So again, it can give you male pattern baldness. Everyone knows this. It's not okay, yeah, whatever. So anyway, so what is this actually? What's actually happening here? Well, the real answer is that's the CIA. Not really, but basically, this account was made a week ago, and immediately this guy followed a bunch of fascists who would literally want him dead. All of the gays against groomer accounts, Matt Walsh, Ben Shapiro, Ron DeSantis, a ton of the, like, you know, we're dedicating our social media platform to the eradication of trans people, like that, like the whole list through. Um, the big video tweet right here got a bunch of attention and was responded to by some of these anti-trans organizations before it got ratioed into oblivion, where they're like, oh, we want to hear more from your story. And the story is, for this guy, I must remind you, that he doesn't regret transitioning. So, what is this? Right? I mean, look at this. Right after making the account, again, I have to remind you, a week ago, retweeting Christopher Rufo. Second tweet. It's all this. It's an op. It's very clearly an op. It's unambiguously an op. Um, it's a shamelessly transparent op. It's not even remotely subtle. Uh, so again, like what's actually going on here? So there are two possibilities. Actually, there are three. One is that this guy isn't actually trans, and that this is like a full op from top to bottom. I don't think that's true. Because it'd be really easy to pop that bubble. Like, oh my God, is that like Eric? I reckon. Oh, Eric, dude, we went to high school together. You're not trans guy. You're cis guy. What? That's an easy bubble to pop. Which means there are two real possibilities here. One of them is that this is some delusional, self-hating, internally transphobic so-and-so, you know, Blair White type or whatever, who is just authentically, um, you know, anti-trans in the fashion that he is, you know, whatever that means to him. And this is just something that gels naturally with right-wing op behavior. And the other possibility is that this is like a deliberate effort to do the op thing, right? Like let me just make some money or get some attention, right? It's essentially, yeah, brain damage or grift. To what extent is it either or both? The answer is I don't know. You don't know. None of us can actually know. I think that what this guy is doing is heinous and incredibly irresponsible. The idea of like, oh, hey, I'm a trans person who doesn't regret his transition, by the way. Let me hop on here and like attack by implication trans people in an effort to get the attention of a ton of fascists who want them dead. Right, great. So I'm opening with this guy right here because this is the reason why the trans community as a whole is incredibly distrustful of detransitioners, which is really unfortunate. We've talked a bit before about detransitioners, but I wanted to kind of like go over it because this is sort of a recurring paradigm. The main problem is that like, okay, you know how for a lot of guys online, the only time they see somebody with blue hair is when, like, libs of TikTok posted a video of them, and they're sort of conditioned now when they see somebody with blue hair, they think like, oh, this person is like a groomer, leftist, pro-trans, blah blah. Like they get like it like the neuron connection right here, it just fires a synapse and they get angry immediately. A lot of people in the trans community feel that way about detransitioners because detransitioners, either through grift or through just genuine, honest-to-goodness brain damage, are very frequently picked up and signal boosted by right-wing media in an effort to showcase the harm and destruction done by trans ideology, right? So before I talk a little bit about detransitioners, like broadly, I just want to say this, okay? As far as we know, from the data we have, the majority of people who detransition don't do so willingly. They do so either because they can no longer afford the hormones or don't have access to them in some fashion, or because of social stigma. Like essentially, they're getting a lot of shit for being trans, and they're going back in the closet, like I guess medically, which is really sad. You know, that represents the majority of detransitioning right there. It's not people who are like renouncing their transition or anything. It's people who just can't. Um, so they have to back off it, which is really sad. You know, I imagine a lot of those people had high hopes when they finally got access to medical hormones, and then to be forced off of it due to financial, logistical, or social concerns is, you know, that's got to really suck for them. Definitely not good for their mental health. You know, I'm sure there are a lot of people who would like to frame that as saving their kids. How many right-wing parents have you seen bragging on social media that, like, they had like a 14-year-old daughter who expressed gender nonconforming behavior, so they like grounded them for like 2 years and took away their phone and everything. It's like, wow, great, we're doing great, great parenting here, you know. Um, Not at all uncommon. Well, because that's what these parents are being taught to do. They're being taught the same shit that conservative parents were doing with like gay kids. It's like, get the fuck out of my house, or like, I will literally beat you into being straight or cisgender, or like, I will isolate you from progressive social influences, i.e., like all modern culture and every human being who isn't like a friend of mine, you know? Um, it's a recurring pattern. So I just want to be clear right off the bat. When we talk about detransitioners, this is a group to whom we should be overwhelmingly sympathetic for the most part, and I maintain that. Yeah, Kanye just brought up this story, which is one of the ones I was thinking of. I didn't affirm my daughter. I removed her from the contagion. Within months, she pulled what I called a cease and desist. She saw the truth and left the cult. Over a year later, she's thriving more than she ever was when involved in the gender craze. Hashtag young gender critical women unite. Oh, and we have the so-called daughter here wearing the woman, adult, human, female shirt here, which is funny because the Google definition of trans woman is a person who's transitioned from male to female. So sort of, you know, and then we have like the sort of the, you know, the please help me expression. Yeah, I definitely trust this parent's input on the well-being of their kids. Parents famously good at understanding what's going on in the heads of their queer children. You know, famously. How'd you remove her from the contagion? I removed her from all social media. I purchased monitoring apps to block certain websites from her phone and would receive Gmail alerts if certain words were flagged in her searches or texts. I also would not let her spend time with any friends whose parents I didn't trust. Anyway, so I hope Exhausted Witch over here has, earnest aspirations for the cheapest retirement home that money can buy. Sort of, just sort of like a dirt pit somewhere off a highway overpass that they put a tent over, and they're like, "Here's some like applesauce. We're going to watch two Beatles fight." In like a little, in like a glass cup or something. So yeah, hope she has fun there. That'll be good. So it's a great time. Okay. Okay. So I want to be clear with regards to detransitioners. You know, overwhelmingly, this is not being done by choice. Sometimes people detransition for other reasons. You know, the commonly cited statistic we have for regretting transition is about 3%. Let me bring that up. I swear to God, I actually had this up. Here we go. So here we have got some science here. Regret After Gender Affirmation Surgery, a systemic review and meta-analysis of prevalence. This is from 2021, about a year and a half old, right here. So let's get right to the good part. A total of 27 studies, so meta-analysis, you know, pooling 8,000 trans patients who underwent any type of GAS, which is gender affirmation surgeries, were included. The pooled prevalence of regret after GAS was, oh, never mind, 1%. Overall, 33% underwent transmasculine procedures, 67% transfeminine procedures. Prevalence of regret among patients undergoing transmasculine and feminine surgeries was less than 1% and 1% respectively. So that's not very much. Actually, it's a pretty small amount. So here's another study that I brought up beforehand, so that we could really compare this. You know, we could appreciate and understand what this means. Patients' experiences of discontentment 1 year after total knee arthroplasty, a qualitative study. Of the 348 patients who responded to a letter asking if they were satisfied or dissatisfied with their surgery, 18% reported discontent. You can take a look around if you want. You can look at hip surgery, basically any surgery that isn't like immediately life-saving in nature, like a heart bypass, you know, surgeries done to your legs, your knees, cosmetic surgery, anything of the kind. You know what you're going to find with regards to regret rates? Far more than 1%. I've seen stuff ranging from 6 to 8% for some types of surgeries to surgeries that have like 20 to 30%. Like I know hip surgeries and replacements tend to have like varying levels of satisfaction. Uh, you know, what about plastic surgery? Totally depends on plastic surgery, but a lot of people experience regret. Now, here's the thing. Why are we talking about the prevalence of regret in people who go through trans hormone or surgery or whatever when it's less than 1%, when literally every other surgery has a far higher, like exponentially higher regret rate? The reason is that, as is always the case, this is all completely made up. Oh, thank you, by the way. Fantastic. Oh, here's the detransition grifter from the beginning. Well, I'm not happy about going bald, but that started before I transitioned, so I think it might have been inevitable. Oh, well, there you go. So we have the detransition advocate, you know, sort of please listen to me, Rufo, Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, who doesn't regret their transition, and the only thing they complained about is something they think would have happened anyway. Fantastic. A stirring rebuttal of honest to God, I think it might not actually be an op. I think that guy might actually be like like not a coordinated op. I think it might be like a grassroots grift right there because he's too stupid to actually like why would you ever admit that if the goal is to like, oh yeah, I'm gonna hop on Twitter, immediately follow like every far right person who wants to be dead. Yeah, like okay, great. So anyway, regret for the you know, medical procedures associated with transition are remarkably low. All the data we have indicates that it's good medical practice. That's the reason why it's an uncontroversial decision amidst medical experts to administer hormone blockers or hormone replacement therapy or certain types of surgery. You know, with consultation and with you know, proper evaluation of the patient. You have to be careful about the way a lot of these studies are framed. For example, this study right here, which came out, I think 2 months ago, was linked by that detransition account, the one we just looked at. Continuation of gender-affirming hormones among transgender adolescents and adults. Now, the guy posted this, framing it as though this was like indication of detransition or of regret. But look, the sample included about 1,000 people with an average age of about 19.2 plus or minus 5.3 years. The 4-year gender-affirming hormone continuation rate was 70.2%. Trans feminine individuals had a higher continuation rate than trans masculine individuals. And interestingly, people who started hormones as minors had higher continuation rates than people who started as adults. So this was being framed as a indication that actually like 30% or so of people detransition, which if you read the actual text present here with your eyeballs, you might notice a couple of problems with the way in which this study is framed. First of all, this is a secondary analysis of medical and pharmacy records from the U.S. military healthcare system between 2009 and 2018. Meaning this was an external identification of trans and gender diverse individuals. How do they determine that? Good question. They identified these people who were children or spouses of active duty, retired, or deceased military members using International Classification of Disease 19 codes. We assessed initiation and continuation of gender-affirming hormones using pharmacy records. So, given the fact that this is a secondary analysis, there are some questions that I have right off the bat, especially since most of this is being done on people who are right like young adults, you know? What if they switched to a different insurer or a different pharmacy? Does it continue there? Because they're using pharmacy records, but is it possible that they were just taken through a different channel? Because you're not asking these patients directly, you're going through a secondary analysis of their records. Also, we're selecting for people in the military healthcare system, which has to lay a bias as well. Um, on the selection of those available. What if a different type of hormone is recommended, a different dosage level? If you've taken hormones for 4 years, is it possible that some people stopped for a time because their hormone levels had normed out at an appropriate amount for their identified gender? What happens if they take a brief gap and then resume it later? Does that count as them stopping? Or are there answers to all of these questions? No, not present in the text. So, what's actually going on here? Well, in my opinion, this is a hastily cobbled together study that attempts to poorly replicate better results with inferior ones with a deliberate sort of political bias. I don't know why you would ever try to look at the continuation rates of hormone use from outdated secondhand military pharmacy records without direct contact or anything like that. It makes you wonder. And, I don't want to like sort of delve into conspiracism like, oh, well, this was being done deliberately as an op or anything like that. But at the very least, I think people should, like, you guys should be aware, there is a concerted effort on the part of a great many people to scientifically legitimize their transphobia in the same way that the Supreme Court and the conservative circuit court judges make an active effort to legitimize conservatism through legalese, much in the same way that the Supreme Court justices are like the high priests of conservatism, where they interpret, the ancient texts of the Constitution and the founding texts, and they're like, oh yeah, actually Thomas Jefferson would have wanted I was about to say would have wanted like all black people to have um, to be subservient to white people, but then I remembered, of course, that he actually would have wanted that. That's not, that's actually unambiguously true. Let's not worry too much about what the founding fathers would have wanted, and instead focus on the fact that um, conservative lawyers and judges operate with bias, and so do conservatives in the scientific fields. Y'all get where I'm coming from this? There aren't that many detransitioners. A lot of the people who have detransitioned did not do so willingly, and unfortunately, of those who have done so willingly, as is so often the case with people who are myopic and who are viewing life through their own narrow lens, they are either vulnerable to being picked up by conservative ops, or they are grifters looking to capitalize on their experiences. Oh, a question from chat. At Grass Warlock, Vaush, he literally just showed the effects of testosterone. Apparently not, since that was apparently something happening to him beforehand. And you immediately assumed he's either a grifter or a clout chaser. What if he was just showing 15-year-olds what they were getting into before permanently altering their body? If that was meant to be, first of all, anybody who goes on testosterone is told that male pattern baldness can emerge as a product of it. It's one of the most well-known possible consequences. Second of all, if he was concerned with an accurate framing of the potential symptoms of testosterone, why leave out the fact that he was balding before as a cis woman? At a 15-year-old, do you know how rare it is to be balding as a 15-year-old cis teenage girl? This person has a severe genetic propensity for balding. I don't think, like, you can't make an inference from to like the effects of testosterone for that. And third of all, him jumping on and immediately following and trying to get the attention of a bunch of fascists who want trans people dead is more than enough to distrust him irrevocably with no like second guesses or qualms whatsoever. You never have to trust people like that, folks. Never, never once. If somebody is like, I am here, I am a good faith interlocutor, I have many opinions on my and your experiences. Let me tell you how my experience informs me that conservative policy towards trans people is correct. And then his own experience is that he personally doesn't regret transition. Like, you don't have to take these people seriously. They really, really do make it seem like youth get on hormones with just like no consultation whatsoever. You have to meet with the doctors. You have to go through pediatric psychological analysis. They have to like vet that this is like a good idea for you. It can take years. It's a whole process. It takes a lot of effort, time, money, consideration. It's just not just an accidental thing you stumble into. And by the way, you know what I think? I think you should be able to stumble into it. I think estrogen and testosterone should be over the counter. Because there's a ton of shit that's over the counter already that you can hurt yourself with. I don't know why. Like we have like this very like restrictive attitude. Like, well, there's a ton of shit you can just get from the pharmacy that you can hurt yourself with. It's not addictive, it's not like opiates or whatever, where you might want to legitimately like cordone or hold that away. Yeah, you could hurt and kill yourself with a ton of the stuff that you can just get for free. I guess I don't know what the concern is. What's going to happen? Um, the idea that you're like if it was over the counter, a bunch of people would just like sprint over and like just immediately inject testosterone into their ass, uh and like regret like every I don't know what we think is going to happen, you know. It's also worth pointing out that gender affirming surgeries are not even remotely controversial as long as you're not trans. Gynecomastia or gynomastia, when you have overdeveloped breast tissue as a male, you can get surgery to have that removed as a minor with like no consideration or questions whatsoever. Like you can just go to a doctor with like as a dude with gyno, and you can just be like, yeah, this kind of sucks, and they can be like, oh yeah, let's get that lopped off or whatever. But then you have people like Matt Walsh who are like falling to their knees and weeping at all the lost teenage breasts they could have molested from like trans guys getting top surgery. Um, so it's just Vaush know they're really strong chemicals. It should be behind a prescription. There are lots of really strong chemicals that you can just get over the counter. I guess I'm open to arguments for why that should be necessary, but I've never really seen a good argument. Frankly, a lot of stuff that you can only get by prescription, I don't think should be behind prescription only. Like we do have an overly restrictive medical system, and we do live in a state that is, currently active in an ongoing drug war. Therefore, we have highly moralized attitudes towards people's possessions of chemicals. But you can, I don't know you can buy bleach and drink bleach if you want to die. Like I don't know what I don't know. I don't know. I guess I could be convinced, that maybe testosterone and estrogen like smell really good. Like you're just like it smells like in the old cartoons when you leave a pie baking on the windowsill or like cooling, and then like maybe people will like whiff it and then sort of hover over to it, and they'll like drink a ton of it at once and die. I don't know. I'd have to see. I have to think about it. Estrogen tastes a little minty. Oh, well, there you go, I guess. No, it doesn't. The fake news media wants you to believe that estrogen doesn't taste minty. Want to go over an articulate and good faith article on detransitioners? Yeah, sure. Wait, this isn't an article. This is a scientific article. So, okay, when you say want to go over an article, I assume you mean like a news article, with prose, as opposed to a scientific article. What does this say? A rare but consequential risk of gender-affirming surgery is post-operative regret, resulting in a request for surgical reversal. Studies on regret and surgical reversal are scarce, and there is no standard terminology regarding either etiology or classification of the various forms of regret. Results. They're treated between 18,000 and 27 individuals, 57% at least. One patient who experienced regret. A total of 62 patients. A total of 62 patients experiencing regret. 0.2 to 0.3%. Wow. Etiologies of regret were varied and classified. Like, not to say that people who experience regret after gender-affirming surgery shouldn't be taken seriously, but like of all the surgeries, this is like the least regret. Like, this is like the lowest tier in the priority of, whatever. Etiologies of regret were varied and classified as either 1, true gender-related regret, 2, social regret, and 3, medical regret. So of these three, only the true gender-related regret would be like the one conservatives fearmonger over, and the other two would be like social and medical issues. Are they factoring in botched? Well, that would be medical regret. Obviously, bottom surgery is quite medically complicated, though it gets less it doesn't get less complicated. It gets more easy to perform every passing year. The science on it advances quickly, which is cool. Godspeed. obviously, you know, it's a difficult science there. Top surgery is relatively simple, of course. We've been doing variations for that for ages. But the bottom surgery stuff, they're doing little loop-de-loops with the Vans deferens.